Very good.
This is Keenan.
So this committee meeting that was scheduled from 6 o'clock to 6:20 for Founder's Grove NCA was a holdover and is not actually happening. So everybody get out your pillow and take a nap.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're back.
Okay. So we want to go ahead with Memorial Park?
Sure.
Thank
Skipping
you,
the budget.
Mr. President. Quentin, would you like to get us up to speed on
Sure.
where we're at with that?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
All right, so I passed out some pretty pictures for you, and this is a concept plan for what we're looking at for the Memorial Park softball fields. So this actually goes back, I believe, to the park's master plan with wanting to improve those fields and make them more usable for the people who actually use them, which is mostly youth softball. So the idea is to do this clover pattern, which is becoming very popular in not just softball, but baseball as well. And having all of the four fields around a central concession stand. Now you might say there's only 3 fields here, and you're right, because if you look at the southeast side, if we were to put a 4th field there, it would take up what is currently part of the tennis courts and then also the bathrooms for that area. So until we know the future and what we're doing there, we're going to leave that 4th field kind of on the back burner for the time being. So the plan is to take the 3 fields, fields 1, 2, and 3, and we would be removing them entirely and rebuilding brand new fields over a brand new concession stand. We've also got a new concession stand over here, the little blue rectangle that you see down at the bottom left for the Babe Ruth. So this is the kind of the big picture where we're at. The project that we're trying to pursue first is to get the concession stands done. So when we met with a consultant, we told them our plans. This is a professional field consultant, and they said you could do that, but you're not going to get the quality product that you really want in time for these kids to play on the field. So what they recommended was building the concession stands first, focusing on getting those open before opening day of 2026. And then we would come back in the summer after spring ball is finished, figure out a new way to do the fall ball, whether that's using the varsity and JV fields across the street, or maybe using some of the local baseball fields, which our rec director is working with the league on that and sorting out those details. And then taking the second half of the summer and all of the fall to really get those fields done right and get them seeded so we have good turf down before the spring season starts.
I understand. So in the spring, the girls are going to play softball on an unfinished field?
So in this spring, the fields will be exactly as they are. The only difference there might be is I believe it's field 3, which is the northernmost field. We might have to relocate part of that fence. Well, we will have to, I should say, because the concession stand is going to be a little bit higher than the existing grade, which we're doing so that we can fix the grading on the fields, which is one of the biggest issues as far as the complaints go from the league.
Is this the concession stand in the middle?
Yep, the blue spots are the concession stand. So what we have here in the middle, this will be a main concession stand. It'll have guys and girls restrooms with it. It'll have a nice storage area as well for the league to use, or for our parks department to use and with the leagues. That will have an overhead door. It'll be a fully compliant concession stand with full plumbing, and we'll be able to, a grease trap and everything. We'll be able to meet all the health department standards with this concession stand, which we haven't been able to do very confidently for a while. So I think we've kind of been given an exemption for a number of years on our existing concession stands. The Babe Ruth concession stand, one of the nice things about this is it's actually going to have bathrooms. So if you've ever known somebody that played Babe Ruth, you had to either use a porta-john down here or you had to walk a really long way to use a restroom. So we're going to have restrooms in this one. I believe the plan right now is to only have those restrooms open during game time, since there's really not much else going on in that part of the park any other time. And then the league would have a key to be able to lock and unlock those before and after games.
So in the Babe Ruth concession stand, they will have announcements and scoreboard operations?
So there's actually, the way that announcing's been happening recently, they don't really use typical announcers booths, and nobody's building them anymore. One of the biggest concerns that they have is you build a 2-story announcers booth, and because it has to meet building codes, it has to be ADA accessible. So how do you get somebody that has any sort of physical limitation up to that second floor? Well, you have to build a really, really big ramp, or you have to put an elevator in. And we want to be able to allow anybody to be able to do this sort of job and help out and participate with the league. So what they do is most of them, actually we have wireless like Bluetooth speakers that they announce from, and they'll have a wireless Bluetooth mic and they can announce from anywhere. And so the new setup will have plenty of room for them to be able to decide where they want to do their announcing from. And they can set up a temporary area there, or we can talk with the league and work out a more permanent sort of announcer section behind the home plate.
I just don't want any mad softball players coming in here because they can't play.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why we decided to break this up into two, because we could have already come to you guys back in the summer and say, hey, as soon as fall ball's done, we want to get this project going and start moving dirt. We could have got it done and we could have got seed down, but when they came in the spring, it wouldn't have been the quality sort of field that they really want to play on. And we didn't want to do that and then have to go back and fix it after they play on it. So we figured we'd break it up into two smaller sections and just get it done right the first time.
Do we have any possible estimates on like a turf infield, and has that been looked at least for one of the fields maybe?
I haven't got an estimate on turf. It's something we could definitely talk with our consultants about that are doing our design
It's very
review.
common now on these ball fields, because then you can play no matter what. You don't have to have a grounds crew to deal with the dirt. Trust me, I put more hours than as anybody in here on baseball fields
Yeah.
to try to get them ready to play, only to see it rain again and ruin everything you just did. But turf infield, not the outfield, would make sense. I mean, I don't know how you could get those things sponsored. It'd just be interesting to know what kind of money we would be looking at.
For just a turf infield? Okay, yeah.
And even at the NAS, they have the infield and the baseball field is turf, and then the outfield is just all regular grass. But just something to think about. I mean, I don't know if there would be companies that would want to help donate that or not, even if it were just one. I just think it's something to think of long term, because then you really, it helps just with field maintenance a lot.
Sure.
Anyway, just a
Yeah,
thought.
definitely something. I got a note of it here. I'm going to ask our consultants about it, see if they can get us some pricing.
Well, one of the fields, maybe three, be big enough for like adult co-eds and church league or those kind of leagues?
So the current fields there are 250-foot fences. I actually brought with me, this is from the USSSA handbook, which is for youth softball, all fast pitch softball. And a 200-foot fence is actually ideal for every level of playing, except for what it calls men's open. So the 250-foot fence is very excessive. If you know if any of you have kids or nieces, nephews, grandkids that play softball, if you've ever seen them hit a home run on that, it was probably the only one that ever happened, because it just doesn't happen. I mean, 50 feet is a big difference on top of that. So I think these fields will be usable for the co-ed. The focus really has been the direction that we've had from the administration and working with the rec director is to focus on the youth softball.
Okay.
Because they're really the ones who use it the most. And also looking forward as trying to generate revenue streams. My understanding is once that fourth field is in, there's the possibility of being able to enclose that whole Clover area and being able to have a tournament there that would be an enclosed space.
Good.
So you could rent out just that part of the
Right.
park. Where currently you can't really regulate people coming in and out of the park because they want to enjoy the park.
So for all the tournaments we have out there over the summer for the softball, these would be regulation for those tournaments?
Correct. Yes. Yep.
They just look significantly smaller.
They are substantially smaller. The fields that we have right now are not regulation for the outfield fence. So coach pitch and machine pitch is 150 to 200 feet. From 8U all the way up to 14U, the playing field should be 200 feet exactly. And then from 15U all the way up to women's open, 200 to 225 feet. So a 200-foot field is the happy medium that can satisfy literally any age range for softball.
That makes sense.
Next, it'll be parking.
Yes.
So you said they're 200 foot, not 250?
The current fields are 250. So the current fields are not regulation. The
Okay.
proposed fields would be 200 feet. Yeah, even to accommodate a 250-foot fields, there would have to be a lot more work that went done to be able to fit those in an arrangement, which is probably why we have the kind of funny-looking arrangement we have now, because somebody was able to cleverly fit these larger fields in there, in a kind of fun-looking way. But in order to arrange them neatly in the clover shape, we'd have to do a lot more work.
You had said something earlier about adjusting the grade to
Correct.
deal with some of the issues. Could you run us through that real quick? Like, what
Yeah,
that's going
so one of the issues they're having is the fields don't really drain properly. So even though this is close to the river and parts of it are sort of bank run material that drain well as the soil, parts of it aren't. So if the water isn't shedding off and it's ponding anywhere and it rains, sometimes they can't play on those fields for what I understand a couple of days. And it's really a hindrance not just to the league, but especially any tournament that they have planned. So in order to fix the drainage, we have to bring the site up about a foot at the center so that it can drain properly away from everything else.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Quentin.
All right.
Done, Mrs. Hager?
What's that?
Are you done?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move now to utilities. Mr. Ruckman to discuss the Mansfield Avenue Cottage Street Sanitary Improvement Project.
Thank you, Mr. President. We are indeed discussing the sanitary improvement project, and I believe it's Quentin again.
It is.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so this is actually the two smaller projects. Since they were near enough to each other, we thought we would bundle them into one and make it one bigger contract to hopefully entice more bidders and get more competitive pricing on that. So the first one on Mansfield Avenue, a situation we've been aware of for a couple years. There's a sanitary main that runs behind 103 to 111 Mansfield Avenue. So this is pretty much right across the street from Dan Emmett Elementary School. So they have a sanitary main that services just those 5 houses. And there are half a dozen or so large maple trees that are right over top of the sanitary main. And we've had a number of issues with that main. It's an old clay pipe. We've had to go in there several times to clean it out. We've had a number of backups. And so we would like to replace that section of main and then reconnect those 5 customers and get them a working sanitary main so we don't have to go in there and clean it out all the time like we do, and so they can have reliably working sanitary pipes. The other one is an issue we became familiar with more recently, just over the summer. We had a citizen mention that they were having backup issues and wanted to replace their lateral on Cottage Street. This is between Calhoun and Curtis Street, so just a few blocks down the road from the Mansfield Avenue project. And what we ended up finding out was they had a shared lateral with not one but 2 other houses. And there was no way for them to really hook up to the main in a reasonable fashion, without this shared lateral that they already had. So with talking with the engineering department and the utilities, we decided that even though this was only benefiting 3 houses, we had to make sure that they had a reliable way to hook up to the city sewer that didn't require them each having either a shared lateral or 100-foot plus lateral that went down the right-of-way, because then we'd have 3 houses all coming out with these pipes right in our right-of-way under our road, tapping into the main. So this is about a 120-foot extension that we would need to get a permit from the state, Ohio Department of Environmental Protection, to install that, and it would benefit those 3 houses and allow them, when they so choose, to be able to hook up to that. We do know that the one house, which is the farthest to the south, is already interested in hooking up to the new main so that they would get out of their shared lateral situation. And we have a hunch that the other ones would probably follow along fairly soon, because they're going to have the same problems that the current house is having with root infiltration and just having too small of a pipe for that many users.
Council, any questions? You had mentioned cleaning out over on Mansfield Avenue, just for the benefit of council. How often is that happening? More than it should, obviously.
I don't know. I don't know the last time it happened. I do know that it seemed like we were out there at least once or twice a year, which is a lot for a line that only services 5 houses. We've got thousands of customers in the city that we need to help out. So we want to make sure that everybody, gets the same amount of attention as everybody else.
So we would have to remove some trees in there to get to that line.
We'd have to remove about half a dozen trees, yeah.
Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Platt.
Okay. We now move back to Mr. Ruckman for the wastewater rate adjustment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We're going to be discussing the wastewater rate adjustments, and I believe Mr. Sawyers is going to be taking us through this to start.
Yes, council, allow me to the actual legislation. Yeah. Twenty 25 54. Yeah. Okay. All right, council, we've talked about this a few times, primarily first announced with our operation or project H2 overhaul. This is establishing really a wastewater rate adjustment for calendar year 26, 27, and 28. Now, council sets the wastewater rates. The safety service director individually gets the distinction of setting the water rate. Yay me. I wanted to make sure that, and you'll see a whereas in here, particularly talking about the safety service director setting the water rates and corresponding that, because as we go back through and look at past legislation, sometimes that gets a little cloudy. We also wanted to try to start bringing a little bit of clarity into how exactly these rates are calculated, while also doing some sort of continuity between the prior legislation and this legislation. One of the things that we looked at with this new rate study was trying to utilize language that folks are familiar with. And that was evident with H2 overhaul and the water meter conversation. And you'll even see it here as we talk about cubic feet of water. And I'll look at my utilities director and invite him up for a second. 1 cubic feet of water is how many gallons, Mr. Reinhardt? Put you on the spot.
7.48 gallons.
Well, see, there you go. Why would anybody be confused? So we provide how many cubic feet of water?
It'd be 4 units is what it's called. It's 400 cubic feet of water, which is just under 3,000 gallons is our minimum bill. So
when somebody calls in with an English complaint, we explain it back to them in Italian and then wonder why they're mad in Spanish. So what our goal was to try to start getting this as slowly as possible into, understandable language. Gallons. Now, this legislation doesn't do that, but we are starting to, as we start implementing these new meters, we are going to start transitioning that over on their bills to gallons. That way, when you see it, you don't get the fact that you're getting, 2,997 gallons of water a month. You get 400 cubic feet of water, all right?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time in the billing office explaining that, just what it is.
Level setting that. Now, when we started talking about rates as well, there are 3 years, and I want to bring your attention actually more toward the last piece of this. Try to put this here. So what happens in 2028? There's actually A couple pieces here that evaluate the sufficiency of water and wastewater revenues to meet operational and capital obligations, determine whether schedule increases of 2028 remain necessary, and C, consider the potential implementation of CPI, Consumer Price Index-based adjustments beginning in 2029 if justified by inflationary trends, cost of services analysis. So, with this, we have talked about 3 years, starting in the first full billing cycle of the second quarter of 2026. So you're seeing this trend in other communities around central Ohio, really across America, but I think, not to put any other community on blast, but I think I just saw in the Columbus Dispatch that Westerville just did this. There are several other communities. This is not new. Costs are going up. Particularly for us, when we have, some other water projects that we're talking about, and we're talking about, a major upgrade to our wastewater facility. So we're looking at 3 years, and this is after, you're not just taking it from me and Aaron sitting down and doing the math. We had our design architect, Arcadis, come in, do a rate study with us, and they looked at not only the debt, the anticipated growth that we've already projected, but they looked at the capital projects that we had in the pipeline and the proposed capital projects that we had in the pipeline. In the next 3 years, they said 11% for wastewater and 7% for water. And we said, well, what if, even more growth happened in the city? Could we potentially, or if we didn't do these projects, or what if, there are 1,000 variables you could do. You could get all of us could change our mind on certain things, and we could not do this project, or, this housing development, or this, more likely, this corporate business could come in and decide that they're going to be the thirstiest customer that we've ever had, right? That could change the dynamic, which is why that we included that piece at the very end, right? In 2028, come in to decide whether or not that 7% is necessary and that 11% is necessary. And then ultimately determine whether or not we need to keep coming back to council, because it ultimately puts council in the hot seat every few years, right? We actually had this conversation several years ago about whether or not that we wanted to attach a CPI rated, kind of an inflationary connection to wastewater rates. Because if you do that, well then, hey, you don't have to, city council and the administration doesn't have to sit here every few years and do the hard thing, which is costs are going up. We haven't raised rates in X amount of years, and now we've got to do some big rate increase. And several of you were on council when we had that conversation. I was also on council when we had that conversation, and we knew that that was a poison pill that wouldn't pass, so we took it out. And here we are, right here again. So at the end of this term, I think, or at the end of this contract, the end of this obligation here, I think it's worthwhile to pursue looking at that. Doesn't obligate you to do it, but it does put it in there for, whoever's on council 2 years from now, they can sit down and go, okay, well, this piece of legislation not only says these rates, but it also says that we even need to look and see if this is necessary, and we need to look at CPI. So coming back to it, it's 3 years right now for wastewater at 11%. This is based off the recommendations for all of these capital improvements and operations that our design architect, Arcadis, recommended, and 7% for water.
I guess that's my question. So council has to approve the wastewater rates. You
Yes.
have the authority to do what you need to do with water. So
Yep.
why is the water in this legislation? Or is it because the percentage is more than what you can authorize?
The water's in there simply for transparency's sake. So otherwise, there's no other way for the public to know why their water went up. I put that in there on purpose. And I want the community to know that. I could simply raise the rate by a memo sent to the law director, the utilities director, and the billing office and say it's going up.
Is there a cap that you have the right to do that every year?
There is no cap.
Yeah. But I felt that for your sake, I have sat where you sit. The mayor has sat where you sit. And it's a hard decision to raise people's bills. I understand that. So I put myself right there with you and frankly wish that I could do the higher number, but that's not where the recommended figure is. So I put myself in here with you. That way, when somebody says, well, council raised it by 11% and my water bill's going up too, then you can go, yeah, well, the safety service director raised your water bill, so don't even blame me. See, it's in the legislation. But it's only fair and transparent for the public to know how this works. It's also as fair as possible, and I recommended to the law director, who then shot me down, blame Rob, that we also put how much exactly the bill changes. But we have not done that in the past. So the base rate, a good example of this is tariffs on bananas. I've used this example before, but if you'll permit me to go on a tangent here, when we did a tangent, one tangent, yeah,
One tangent.
Mr. Chair, a tangent, if you'll permit me. When we talked about tariffs on bananas, we said, oh, they're going up, tariffs on bananas are going up this percentage. That sounded like a lot, but bananas only went up 9 to 17%, or cents, 9 to 17 cents. When you hear, 11% over the next 3 years, that sounds like a lot. So I was writing down. Right now, there are a lot of calculations when you consider that we have arrangements with Clinton Township, and sometimes you can have this surcharge, and you can have, so if you have a question about your particular bill, reach out to the utility billing office and they will work with you on how exactly you are charged. But the base rate for water is $24.95. That's the current base rate for water. The current wastewater base rate is $29.83.
And the way that you get the base rate is you multiply the number in here times 4, because this is for 100.
One unit.
One unit, which is 100 cubic feet, and the minimum charge is 400 cubic feet. And just as a bit of inside baseball, the reason we couldn't do it the way Tanner wanted to do it to be more transparent is because the entire chapter on wastewater is built around the 1 unit and all of the charges and a bunch of other things. And if we did it the way he wanted to, we'd still be here rewriting the legislation for the operation of the wastewater
I throw
department.
Rob under the bus, he throws the Ohio Revised Code under the bus. See? Beautiful way how that works. Just a lot of buses.
So you're saying that's why we can't have the wastewater rates in here? Is that
No,
what
it
you're-
is the way he
wastewater
wanted
rates
to do it.
Yeah.
Is that he wanted to do something that would be more
I wanted you, as Joe Citizen, to be able to pull up this piece of legislation and go, all right, who raised my rates and how much did they raise them? By what percent did they raise them? And what does that mean per year?
But should we put the new wastewater rates in here just like you did with water?
They are. These are the wastewater rates.
Those are the new wastewater rates.
I'm
But
sorry,
there's no
water, I'm sorry,
comparison.
water rates, I mean.
I offered to do that. You can amend to add those if you'd like.
I mean, because they don't end up in the ordinance. They're only in the whereas clauses because of the way
Yeah.
he has to set them. So you can't put it in an ordinance because he is required to currently put it in by that way. And so what I did was I moved the changes into the whereas section so you would see it.
Yeah. And for clarity's sake, not that this is clear at all, but this is the way that a statutory system breaks this up for all of Ohio. As the director of public services, I have, the safety service director has this authority to do that.
I appreciate the transparency, and I think that's necessary, and so I applaud that. Question on like 2A. Would it be better to like state a date or a month or a quarter when that review would take place? So this review shall evaluate the sufficiency of wastewater and water revenues to meet operational capital obligations by a date or not
It says
necessarily?
I
during
think that's
the,
above,
It's
in
in
the
the first
sentence
quarter.
above.
yeah, it says during the first quarter of 2028.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was a good idea.
I was just
That's a great
I was
idea,
just
Mel.
testing.
To do that.
Yeah. And,
All right,
and a
that
very
makes
handsome
sense.
idea, if I might add.
Yes.
Regarding the, considering the implementation of some kind of smaller increase annually, I think that is I'm in favor of that. It's harder to adjust, I mean, and I pay these rates, live in the South End, I'm gonna pay this.
Yeah.
So, but it's easier to adjust to a measured increase than it is, to a lump. So, when you go, the rates are the same for we're getting ready to have this happen in our electrical bill.
Yep.
We had a great rate for 5 years, awesome. Now it's going to go way up, and that's just harder for your budget to handle. So I'm in favor of because the same things that impact any organization, salaries, materials, energy, et cetera, are going to hit the wastewater plant. So, this makes sense to me.
I'm still confused about the water rates. So it says a 7% increase to all base water rates according to the same schedules established in Section 1. But you're telling me Section 1 is wastewater. So
Yes.
why can't we put what the water rates will be in the whereas clause? I'm not
You
understanding.
question for you.
could put the actual water rates. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm just wondering why it says as established in Section 1 if that's wastewater. Why is it referencing that? I don't
It is
understand.
in the same schedule as Section 1. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. Section 1 is a schedule for wastewater. It's
gonna go up.
basically saying the water rates are going to be raised by 7% in the same schedule as Section 1.
Meaning that it starts at the beginning of the
Yeah.
second quarter.
But it doesn't tell us what they will be. I mean, you said in transparency, we're just not laying out the water rates
Yeah,
then.
would happily do that. And again, this is me chucking Rob under the bus. If Mr. Bourne would like, seriously, if Mr. Bourne and council, if you want for us to add that in a whereas, I believe that's proper. It has, and I would also like to add, it has never been done that way before, which is why, we kind of got in a back and forth about doing it. We've never done it that way before. In the past, the public has never been able to look back and see, why did my water rate increase? Who did it? And how much did it go? And to the cent. That's a new thing. And after this conversation with the Utilities Commission, with all the H2 overhaul conversation, with the upgrades to the water plant and wastewater plant, we said somebody should be able to look at one piece of legislation, not go digging in the archives, and they should be able to see who raised their wastewater rate and who raised their water rate. They are not the same groups. The council does one, the safety service director does the other, and they should be able to see by what percentage, what that base rate was, how did it change, and what does that mean in real dollars, not percentage and getting back on tariffs and bananas. So we're talking about people want transparency. That's transparency. But the reason it's in the whereas clause is the ordinance does not actually change the water rate. Because the ordinance is only affecting the wastewater rate. That's you guys.
So the minimum water charge is $24.95
Currently.
currently.
And which is 4 times the unit charge.
I thought that was the current
The current-
wastewater rate.
No,
Wastewater is $29.83.
2983.
So
Okay.
the current water charge minimum is $24.95. So 7% on that would make it like $26.70. Would be the
26.70.
minimum.
Divided
And
by
then-
4.
Yep. So for water, when it changes, for the first full billing cycle of April, a 7% increase in 2026 would be $26.70. And then again, on the same schedule, like in Section 1, in 2027, it would be $28.57, your water bill would be. And then in 28, for the first full cycle of quarter two, assuming that council deems it necessary, right? If we show up and, company A decides to buy 3 million gallons of water a day and we determine that that's not necessary, not seeing that coming, but I don't know. If there is another 7% increase, then that would be $30.57 per month
Okay.
for water. Because like Mr. Brewer said, it's basically that base charge broken out 25, that's a
The
quarter
base
of that
charge is, the base charge is the 1 unit by 4. The number that Mr. Salyers has just used there is the base water rate
The totality.
minimum.
Yeah.
And then remind me, the wastewater, 2983, everybody pays that no matter what.
Yeah. Well, the problem with that is then you start getting into the arrangement that we have with Clinton Township. And then some folks in Clinton Township, like we've talked about, where we're talking about the Crystal Avenue project. Some of those folks and some other folks in Clinton Township will have water and wastewater. So it becomes,
But in general,
everybody pays
so I'm
29.
paying 2983 plus 828 for.
It's
The next year
60,
would be
70 right now is
38.11.
the
something
minimum
like
bill, is that right?
I think it's
Aaron?
easier to put those numbers
60,
in there
70?
because
Yeah.
2983 is, that's what everybody pays essentially. Not,
Yes.
well, I'm throwing everybody, but,
If you-
2495
Also remember,
could
if
be
you,
one bill, but
if you're looking
50
at
might
your
be
bill
else.
and you're in the city and you're just, Joe resident, and you're like, yeah, but my bill's larger than that, you're also paying a stormwater assessment on top of that, a $6 per month stormwater assessment.
I think I'm okay with the way it is. I think the key thing would be when I make a call, somebody can explain why my bill is what it is. And that's going to happen quite a bit when this kicks in.
It also won't happen until the first full pay period of the second quarter, and that is on purpose. Oftentimes you see that, and there's for two reasons for that. One, because we're replacing so many meters, and we want people to have an opportunity. If you're one of the individuals, and you will be notified if you're going to get one of your meters replaced. But if we want you to have an opportunity to have your meter replaced and you to get adjusted, if it's going to radically change what your bill looks like, we want you to, have an opportunity. If you're taking 15-minute showers, maybe cut that down a little bit. Or enjoy, whatever. Yeah, it's America,
And then
man.
sorry, I know this is important. So these numbers that we have here have taken into consideration, the growth south on 13, what's going in and out behind the current health department and what we
Right.
just approved. That's taking into consideration as much as possible
Right.
through some kind of a formula
Sure.
that we're going to be adding users.
Yes. But they're also if you remember when we were talking about this with the H2 overhaul project, we did very conservative estimates for those growth figures.
And that makes sense.
Yeah. So if they, fill up and grow even more and all of these, this is just a 3-year period. So if everybody shows up and they've, build all these houses and all these units and businesses come flooding in, and that is actually what I would argue is more of a variable is the commercial use as opposed to the residential use. If we have more commercial use, folks, we have a clarifier that sits empty. We could literally double our capacity tomorrow. So if that shows up and we are making that much more profit off of water, then that variable, particularly with water, could change. Now, we have a capacity problem with our wastewater plant, so that kind of changes some things. But that's why I think it's important that in 2028, council sits down before they're like, all right, we're planning on the 11% and we're planning on the 7%. But let's double check with the administration at the time and say, this is still necessary, and then we'll move forward with it. And then they also consider that 3%, or that, right now it would be about 3%, but see what CPI is and see if moving forward, that's something that they want to attach, because as Mr. Mahan pointed out, it's a lot easier to sell, yep, it's gonna go up 3%, like basically everything else. Or, you know, every couple years you sit down and a council swallows the pill of doing, you know, as Ms. Councilwoman Woods has pointed out, you know, this is 33% when you talk about compounded growth, so that's not easy.
37.
Yeah, well, it's not easy to do, so, and that's just on one side, just for wastewater. So I'm not making light of it. It's a significant change, but also we haven't done anything since the last time. You know, what's that? 5 years ago, or more. So.
Anything else, Mr. Ruckman?
Council have any other questions? Think I'm good.
Okay, we'll move now to this CDBG Riverside Park Neighborhood Project. Mr. Severance.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Ball is coming forward. We're going to be talking first here about Riverside Park, which tonight would be Resolution 2025-110. Mr. Ball.
Great. So this is a neighborhood CDBG, which is requires us to do multiple things. So we started back a while with a bunch of public meetings and looking at need. The census block that we are looking at is north of High Street, includes Heartland Park, is bounded by the levee up to the Shalmar, American National Can. All these sites have different names. So you have I didn't put a big title on it, but you have a handout of the neighborhood with some colors on it. So that is the area. The way we've worded this, hopefully, this will probably be a multiple award contract. The crowd pleaser is probably some pickleball courts, where you have another handout. So the blue square, if we zoom into that, you have another handout that shows 6 pickleball courts at the end of Walnut Street. And then the existing pickleball facility gets converted to basketball. We've already done some playground upgrades in there as part of our match to the project. So this would be one bid, would be the work in the park. The restroom that's there is in pretty good shape. It is old, but we would not be making changes to the restroom. Everything would be handicap. There would be some accessibility from the pickleball facility to the restroom. We already have handicap parking there. So many of you may have talked to Kurt, our enthusiastic pickleball representative. We have brought him in to review designs. So we just actually a couple minutes ago got a final set of plans that incorporated some of his comments. We invited him to give a 45-minute discussion later in the meeting if you need it.
Kidding.
That's a joke.
He'll be here for 4 minutes.
So, yes, he is very passionate about pickleball. We have a lot of enthusiasts. Again, we're looking at a modern facility. The shape is limited with the HUD funding. We are not allowed to do any work in the floodway. So we are kind of tucking this project into the floodplain, but not into the floodway. So if we eventually get the levee back where we want it to be, none of this would be in the floodplain or the floodway, but that's one. The shape of this may look a little odd, but that's a federal regulation that we are not allowed to bend.
Speaking of which, when we had that federal money come in, ARPA, whatever it was, and we're supposed to get some funding to help with the insurance in the west end, did anything ever happen with that?
Yes, we've done a lot of work. We have not actually used all of those funds yet, and the work is ongoing. We can, if you want, maybe at the next council, we could give kind of an update on it.
Interesting though, because people that in the town get really zapped for insurance.
Yeah. So that's not part of this project, but we've been working on that project is ongoing, and we can bring an update if you want at the next meeting. The other thing that this includes, This includes street improvements and stormwater improvements on West Sugar Street. That area is, we're going to do some improvements, kind of maybe narrow the roadway, take back the tree lawn, improve drainage, sidewalks, lots of sidewalk improvements. You can see the red line, so sidewalks both sides. We have to kind of hit our target of multiple items, so we are changing out one individual fire hydrant that checks the water box. There is some sanitary improvements. We will probably bid that as a third project. So at this point, we want to get the park and the Sugar Street part happening right away in January. We want to be courteous to Aaron's funds in the utility, so we're going to hold that to kind of try to get an extension to do that project a little bit later, so we can see how things go with funding, because that is a little bit of a stretch goal. The other thing that's important, and Mike Miller and I had this conversation quite a bit, the neighborhood projects are things that the neighborhood brings to us. So this program is neighborhood driven. So we go to them with a blank map at the first public meeting, and then we give them pens and they draw on the map. And then we work through and we narrow down what are the problems. Do we have a reasonable solution? So the things that are brought back to you have come from the neighborhood. We did not pick Sugar Street to rebuild. We may have leaned more toward Greenwood because it has more traffic. But from the neighborhood perspective, we heard that Sugar Street has some folks with limited limited abilities. They have substantial damage to the sidewalk. The ponding areas make it difficult to have ADA access, and so we then came up with alternatives. We have people vote in the public meetings. It's a long series of public meetings to get to this solution. So this is not a project that is traditionally driven by the administration. It is driven by the neighborhood. So
I'm sorry, Brian, did you say you'll narrow the roadway?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
At the end of the day, this will have curb and gutter. It won't be excessively narrow. The road's kind of uneven, the width is uneven. That's for the next one. So it's giving it defined borders with curb and gutter and parking, where it's sort of the gravel and the asphalt kind of spill over into each other. And it's part of the complaint is it's unsafe for pedestrians because there is not a good definition between what's road, what's parking, and what's sidewalk. So we'd be trying to give it definition. So it would be slightly narrower, but it would still meet our standards. We're working on a little bit of I don't know if a press release on our focus on sidewalks. The mayor and I met Mr. Jeff Speck, who writes a lot of books about walkable cities, and he's recommending lane widths in the 10-foot range. We feel that's a little too narrow, so we are leaning more toward 11-foot for these neighborhood areas where we can.
Council, the reasoning behind that, the wider the lanes are, the faster traffic goes.
Yep. So we're trying to actually move the cars a little bit closer in the parking, but still give an adequate lane to get a snowplow, a fire truck. But it's the feel, instead of trying to force people to drive correctly with signs and the police, we're trying to change the road so that you get a little bit of a tighter feel and it feels like a neighborhood. So we're trying to use a little bit more psychology, doctor, than just having to have police here because people think they should drive faster. So
That's what the potholes were for.
well, the potholes do
Where are
have
those? We
negative
better get
impacts on things. So. Other questions?
All right.
I don't have a question, but I just want to observe, I appreciate the work, and it seems like it was almost 2 years ago that we started having those meetings. I think the first one was at ADF, if I remember. And so it takes a while, but, for the public, that kind of input when you go into the neighborhood, we're looking for, hey, what do you need in your neighborhood when we do these CBD grants? So this is good stuff, and I'm happy for those folks down there.
It's a great part of town. There's a lot more work to do. So this is the beginning of a commitment, and we'll get the party started.
Good. Anything else?
Okay.
All
We're
right.
going to adjourn that committee meeting. We're going to move on with Mr. Severance again to CDBG Burgess and Hamtramck reconstruction project.
Yes, Mr. Ball.
Great. You have another handout. Gabby, one of our temporary helpers, went out and took a little photo shoot. So if you've lost a muffler or any under part of your car, you may be laying here on a brick street nearby. So again, a similar cycle. This is Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, critical infrastructure project. What we do in these projects, we've traditionally used this on brick streets. So we've identified 4 blocks of brick street that are in a qualifying income qualified block. And our function would be, we would completely replace all of the utilities. So as we were going through the grant application and the records, the one section of Burgess Street, based on the auditor's records, the last notable investment was in 1929. So Mel asked, how long do they last? I'm like, well, the last time we invested money that was written in a book in the auditor's office on Burgess Street between Mulberry and Main Street was 1929. So we think it's time to do a little
We can
reinvestment.
blame it on the horses then, maybe.
Yeah, maybe the horses. Well, and again, these streets were made. No one had seen a 66 passenger school bus or a compactor garbage truck. Yes, it was, horse-drawn small vehicles, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up the bricks. We're going to rip out all the utilities that we own, put them back in new, and put down some concrete, remove any topsoil that may be under the road, and put down a stable foundation of concrete and put the same bricks back down. One thing we're going to try for this is also adjacent to historic neighborhoods. We are going to ask the contractor to remove the sandstone curbs and reset them, or to not disturb them. So we do see that we do love our concrete, but the concrete curbs that are on Hamtramck Street are basically gravel or trash. So that does not necessarily have the same lifespan as the sandstone curbs. We're going to try this as a new thing to preserve those sandstone curbs on Burgess Street, because most of them are really good shape. We do have, thanks to Mr. Zimmerman, when he was in the street department, we do have some salvage for areas where those have been removed. So we do have a few broken pieces that we would put back. So everybody has a share in it. So there's a significant amount of grant funds, street funds, water, wastewater, stormwater, sidewalk. So questions?
Just out of curiosity, if everything went according to plan, how long would that take?
We would bid this immediately in January, and we would do everything possible to be done by the deadline that is August 1st.
I mean, all of this
Yes.
work would be done by August 1st if
We
everything
hope.
goes according
Just
to plan.
the Burgess and Hamtramck.
Right, no, I understand.
Yeah, the Burgess, in this committee meeting,
understand.
we would, we did 3 blocks of Catherine Street. We waited, so we have 2-year performance period. We would be, January 1st starts our 2nd year of our performance period. So we've had a lot of good projects going on. We hadn't had time to finish design, and the north end has a lot of construction. So those reasons, the administration agreed to hold this project to start it in January. So our goal is to be done. It's complicated. We'll have to see the interest of the contractors. It could extend into October, but we want to be done. We want and need to be done. So we do have a federal deadline. We want to meet that. And we will put the pressure that we are legally allowed to put on our contractors to get that done. If we put too much pressure on them, they may not bid the project. So we don't want to have to rebid it. But we want to be clear that when you start it, you also have to finish it. So, yep. Other questions?
Good.
That it?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, we're going to adjourn that The Streets and Public Buildings Committee meeting. We're now in recess until 7:30 PM. We'll begin the legislative portion of the meeting.
Yay, recess.